All right, guys, Melissa here. So, I want to do a video about doing stuff in your own strength. I wanted to talk about that. So, I had just shared yesterday a video about doing stuff in my own strength and how that can be the hardest, like one of my biggest weaknesses, right? Instead of going to God, where He says, "Come to me, all you who are heavy and burdened, and I will give you rest." Right? Take upon me my burden. It's easy. Um, I'm paraphrasing, right? So I had a situation, as always. This is the way it is when life, when you hit hard, you run hard in life. I remember playing baseball at one of the churches here, and the pastor was talking about just like sports. He has hit life really hard. I mean, he is a pastor whose church has been through a lot. So when you have a very active life, you're going to have a lot of stories, a lot of situations. So had a situation with work, and I called in today so that I would have the extra time to deal with it. So I had called a couple times, talked to some people over there, and I had to wait for my boss to get there, but the big boss. So I had told them about Saturday, like, I was not allowed to clock in because the schedule was wrong, and how this person knew, they knew that the bus doesn't come until like 9:30. They knew my schedule, but they tried to give me a hard time about it. So, in a nutshell, my boss is happy with me. He's like, again, we don't want to lose you. We don't want you to quit. I'm like, would you pay me for that? And he's like, well, I can't because the manager made the decision. And I'm like, it takes me an hour and a half in the morning to get to work. And so, um, he's like, I'm going to deal with it. So, it is nice and I appreciate a boss who will deal with stuff for you. So another time I had, just done some extra cleaning, just got everything very meticulously cleaned, and then someone walked in and made a mess. And I'm like, how do I deal with this? I'm like, do I go to the boss? Or, and I'm someone, like I told my boss today, I haven't said anything, but this is the stuff that's been going on. And you saw the trash situation with her. And, so I said, okay, I'm going to have to tell him because we're taking pictures of my work. It's being sent to corporate, and this is not acceptable, this mess. So this was a guy. And I also, knowing as a woman, how sometimes men can have tempers. They really can, especially young men who have not matured. So I'm like, just go to the boss and let him deal with it. And the boss is like, what's going on? And so he brought this guy in to the area where I cleaned and said, look what you did. You just made a mess of her work that she just did. So, when you have an older man dealing with a younger man, it is wiser than you trying to deal with it. And I just told this guy after, I said, I wasn't trying to get you in trouble, but this is my work. He totally disrespected my work, and then he took responsibility as he should, and he cleaned it up himself. And it wasn't how I had it. It wasn't the same, but still, um it's great to have a boss, and I appreciate this, that will deal with things. And he's like, you're a hard worker. We don't want to lose you. You're a good worker, and I know I'm a good worker, but we had to get some clarity on a couple things. And I was just thinking how much nicer, like my husband, when I would tell him, I usually deal with stuff on my own, but I'm like, look, almost every time with your mother, there's something that she says, some kind of interaction to me that's pretty rude. And he didn't want to deal with it. So it's kind of like, well, she's your mom, and you're the one responsible dealing with your parents, just as I would be the one responsible for anything with my parents, right? So I was talking to one older lady the other day, and she's like, oh, we adore our son-in-law, we just adore him. She's like, my girl has been very picky about who she married, and we just totally adore him.